Something happened to me that night, something I still can't explain. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was home. I no longer felt lost. Often what follows failure, what follows collapse, is a sudden bloom of growth. I found meaning where I once saw nothing, and I made it my aim, in whatever small way I can, to bring beauty into this world. I think I'm a very lost individual. I don't recognise the culture I've been thrown into. I've always longed for something beyond it, something more real, more solid, more true. For a long time, I thought fame and success would take me there. But the more I chased that life, the further away I moved from the thing I was actually searching for. My egoic pride had been struck by the stern fist of humility again and again and again. I feel like a failure. At least the self-help books tell me I am. We grieve failure like a loss. You hold an idea, an ambition, a version of yourself in your mind. When you fall short of that vision, you mourn it. You grieve that imagined future the way you'd grieve the loss of a relative. So what does success look like in 2025? Is it great wealth, power, being revered or honoured, living the most pleasurable life possible? Thomas Aquinas said these are the typical substitutes for God. Sensing a void within ourselves, we try to fill it with some combination of these things. They all have their place, but none of them will fulfill you. Each one demands more to satisfy, and that hunger inevitably leads to addiction. A few years ago, I was struggling mentally. It was after the first winter lockdown during COVID. I'd moved into a penthouse apartment in Manchester with 2 friends. On paper, it looked like a dream come true. Think of the status, the bravado, surely this would make me more attractive, more valuable to the world. What followed became a living hell. Most days I couldn't leave the flat, crippled by anxiety and paranoia. Felt like a life built on sand was collapsing all around me. And when it fell, I realised I had nothing. I was nothing. After about a year and a half of suicidal thoughts, existential crisis and a complete mental breakdown, I decided enough was enough and started therapy. I was taught how to interrupt downward spirals, how to change the trajectory and spiral upward. I was sent on small, terrifying missions. I had to relearn how to communicate, how to exist among people again. It rebuilt my confidence, but still, it wasn't enough. I tried to fill myself again with pleasure, with status, with hacks, but I still felt lost. I became certain of one thing: whatever I was searching for could not be found here. I'd found hell, so where was heaven? I began to glimpse beauty in art, in music, in poetry, in story at a deeper level, and I wondered, could it be found there? Then I did something completely out of character. I booked a flight to Rome alone. I wanted to see the great artworks, the architecture, to experience the Renaissance firsthand, but more than that, it was an act of courage. 6 years earlier, I couldn't even get on a bus on my own due to an incident in my youth. I'd overcome that. This felt like the next step. And what I didn't expect was that most of my time would be spent in churches. I'd begun to take religion seriously. Buddhism as a practice, and Christianity as something to study. I'd watched the Jordan Peterson biblical lectures. I'd spent hours with Jonathan Pageau's Symbolic World. And I started to wonder, had I been looking at this enormous part of Western history through the wrong lens? Was that why I didn't understand it? Why I thought it was corrupt, wrong, even evil? Humans corrupt things, of course they do. But maybe I'd been too quick to dismiss it all. Maybe I'd thrown the baby out with the bathwater. I was born and raised Catholic. My experience of church was an alcoholic priest dribbling words that meant nothing to my modern mind. The church looked more like a hospital waiting room than a place of transcendence. I loved the hymns though, the choir, that was about it. To me it felt like fear-mongering, control, authority, and I didn't like being told what to do, so I turned away. I wasn't an atheist. I find it hard to believe anyone who creates doesn't sense something working behind the scenes. I was agnostic, open, but deeply resentful of the church. I disrespected the Bible through ignorance more than anything. So began my dark ages. When I came back from Rome, that changed. A year later, I booked Florence, the home of the Renaissance. Nothing could have prepared me for it. Every turn flattened me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Was this a glimpse of heaven? Again, I found myself mostly in churches, looking at frescoes, sitting in silence. Travelling alone is beautiful, but it carries waves of loneliness. You see something extraordinary and instinctively want to turn and tell someone. When there's no one there, the silence can ache. But joy and sorrow together, that balance is what brings beauty into the world. And there was beauty in these moments that words still can't touch. When I came home, a girl I'd recently stopped seeing had mentioned a church in Manchester, the Hidden Gem. She said it had paintings too. I couldn't believe I'd never heard of it. It took me a while to build the courage to go. In a secular country, walking into a functioning church almost feels like a crime. But one Wednesday evening, I went. From the outside, it's unassuming. Inside, silence. A busy city centre in summer, roaring just outside those doors, and within them, a blissful peace and quiet. I looked up to the great sculpted altarpiece and felt my breath leave me. I was there for the paintings. Norman Adams is stationed at the cross, lining both sides of the church. I noticed people sitting to the left, then a bell rang. They stood. I realised I'd walked into the start of Mass. I wanted to run. I froze, half naked in shorts and a t-shirt, and then something inside me sat me down, and I stayed. I took part. I stood. I sat. I knelt. I submitted. I embraced the ritual. I embraced the community. I accepted that I could no longer do this alone. And 2.5 years later, I've never really left. I stayed because I felt a deep truth that I'd not experienced in this real world. Something happened to me that night, something I still can't explain. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was home. I no longer felt lost. Often what follows failure, what follows collapse, is a sudden bloom of growth. I found meaning where I once saw nothing, and I made it my aim, in whatever small way I can, to bring beauty into this world, to leave my corner of it better than I found it. A lot of us want to change the world, and that's noble if it's for something higher than ourselves. But the truest work is changing your own heart. Do that, and the ripples may reach further than you ever expect. My resolution for this next year is to do more of that, and less of the things I know are bad for me. I encourage you to try the same and see how you get on. Tend to your garden and watch it grow. I hope 2026 is kind to you. Thanks for listening.